Okie dokie, Smokey. The Oscar goes to Eddie Redmayne!
Eddie Redmayne won an Oscar for The Theory of Everything, but he's probably responsible for another Oscar victory as well. The other
Miss Anne Hathaway
is Les Miserables co-star Anne Hathaway. How is anyone other than Hathaway responsible for her performance, though? In an interview with Movieline, director Tom Hooper said that Redmayne visited the editing room and asked him, "Why aren't you using that close-up that you're using in the teaser trailer?" in regards to the show's signature number sung by Hathaway, I Dreamed a Dream. In the first footage released from the film, Hathaway is shown in mid-shot. Hooper's original plan for the song was that mid-shot, followed by a slow track up to a medium close-up. But Redmayne's suggestion prompted a re-examination of the scene that influenced the editing of the entire film. But his influence produced so much more than just a single award. He radically redefined the genre of the movie musical through a single, unbroken close-up. This might sound like hyperbole, but when contextualized in the background of the development of the relationship between the stage and the screen, it marks a radical break from long-standing traditions and conventions of how a musical moves into cinematic form. Now, just to get one thing straight, I don't intend to argue that the overuse of close-ups in Les Miserables worked in its entirety. Some were much better than others, and I Dreamed a Dream stood head and shoulders above the rest. An understanding of why it works best has to return all the way to the dawn of cinema itself, when the close-up was not a part of the grammar available to filmmakers. When exactly the first close-up occurred varies on who you ask. Some say it's Edison in 1894 with Black Mariah's short, Fred Oughts to Sneeze. David Bordwell credits the Brighton School of England for pioneering the technique. Mark Cousins claims it's George Albert Smith's The Sick Kitten in 1903. Some of this dispute stems from debate over what exactly constitutes a close-up, but very few deny the man who established them as a hallmark of cinema, D.W. Griffith, who found the emotional logic of allowing a face to occupy the entirety of the screen. An urban legend states that when D.W. Griffith narrowed his camera's gaze on the face of an actor in the early 1910s, his producer offered this dismissal of the technique. "We pay for the whole actor, Mr. Griffith. We want to see all of him." Film at this time was a cinema of attractions. It was spectacle-based, stemming largely from its sideshow status to vaudeville and other theatrical attractions. Take a look at Le Voyage dans la Lune, a film from early narrative filmmaker and magician Georges Méliès. It keeps everything in long shot, replicating the theatrical point of view, and never dares to go close on the action. Film theorist André Bazin wrote that Méliès and the early makers of cinema developed an inferiority complex in the presence of an older and more literary art. But as the years passed, audiences became more comfortable with the conventions of cinema, which allowed filmmakers to experiment with the syntax of the medium. That close-ups developed around the same time as cross-cutting hardly seems coincidental. Viewers craved the alternation between the scales possible in cinema, the theatricality of the wide shot and the emotionality of the close-up. His discovery occurred around the same time as academic discourse began to build around the cinema as art rather than diversion. It became the technique that separated the cinema from the stage. Many cite the development of the close-up as the moment when film became art rather than just amusement. The shot proved of particular scholarly interest to a group of French Impressionist writers who praised the close-up for its emotional capabilities. Their writings broke radically from preconceived notions about the medium, which many assumed was locked into objective representations of reality by its very photographic nature. But as Romantic critics praised the shot, the world was rejecting their guiding philosophy in the wake of World War I's devastation. The close-up came into wide usage as a tool of naturalism, exposing a richly detailed texture without necessarily implying the spiritual undercurrents beneath. And over time, it slowly evolved into just another tool in a filmmaker's shed that a few visionaries knew how to employ expertly. Most recently, it has become the go-to shot in an era of platform-agnostic viewing, following the lead of television. It's tempting to assume that the relationship between the stage and the screen began here.
Wait a minute, you ain't heard nothing yet.
With the birth of sound, an obvious prerequisite for the existence of the movie musical. But cinema had already been pulling from the technique of the stage for decades, and plenty of silent dramas based on stage shows had been made. The Great White Way and Hollywood have long had a symbiotic relationship, with Broadway shows providing easy fodder for adaptation into cinema. That relationship, though, has recently started running in reverse.
Oh my God!
The first acknowledged movie musical was The Broadway Melody, a film so successful it spawned 50 imitators in just 2 years. Studios were happy to churn out homogeneous, easily reproducible musicals to satisfy the audience's desire for the novelty of hearing their favorite performers. But for the purposes of this video essay, I wish to restrict my analysis to films like Showboat, a prepackaged product that came directly from Broadway to the movie theater. Since the text of these genre films was mostly affirmed by the stage, the aesthetic was baked into the product. Long shots, long takes, and little camera movement, essentially making the camera the equivalent of the theatrical audience member. Musical theater was much more popular at this time, so tinkering with this model would have seemed blasphemous. A close-up would have felt just out of place in this filmed theater style, since the shot has no equivalent on the stage. The classical movie musical has undergone changes since it appeared, beginning mostly in the mid-1960s. Iconoclastic techniques and skeptical attitudes migrated into the American cinema from the French New Wave and Italian neorealist filmmakers, neither of which merged well with the standards of the movie musical. There were also economic reasons behind the change. Rock and disco were on the rise, and the Broadway pop single was on the wane. As the musicals tried to reflect this social unrest and conflicted community, they resisted the lighter fare being offered in musical theater. It's tough to pinpoint the features of an era that is still unfolding, but the movie musical returned again in the late 1990s with Evita. It and subsequent other musicals of the 21st century reintroduced many stage-like conventions back into the genre. But they also reflected the emerging aesthetic of the music video. With heavy cutting and montage, these films disrupt the natural flow of performance throughout the take. In addition, some speculate that these new movie musicals offer a sort of apologia for musical performance as they lace their numbers with irony. Chicago, for instance, quite literally makes the world of its musical numbers into a stage, lights and all. Tom Hooper's Les Miserables is uniquely situated in the context of a new glut of movie musicals, perhaps even at the tail end. The filmmaking team had many questions to answer in regards to genre. Would the film continue towards further fragmentation, favoring the new emphasis on realism over formalism? Would it ridicule the conventions of musical theater, or would it embrace them? André Bazin deemed any sort of middle ground impossible, stating, "The text determines the mode and style of the production. It is already potentially the theater. There is no way at one and the same time of being faithful to it and of turning it aside from the direction it was supposed to go." Yet against all odds, Hooper chose to resolve these profound aesthetic dilemmas by not exclusively favoring one style over the other, instead choosing to blend the successes of both the classical and the modern musical to create a fresh, distinct entry into the genre. Hooper's bridge of choice? The close-up.
And I wanted to find a way of honouring that, but turning it into an epic cinematic experience. But the epic part of it is partly being able to get close on these amazing actors' faces as they sing these songs.
To be fair, Les Mis is not the first movie musical to use close-ups. Bob Fosse used them in 1972's Cabaret to show how individuals could fall to fascist ideology. But thanks to incredible advances in radio microphone technology, the sound team of Les Miserables was able to capture incredible aural textures and close-up that were previously impossible. This enabled Hooper to shoot the actors singing live. For more on this, let's hear from Eddie Redmayne.
Normally, if you were making an old-school movie musical, as a group of actors, we'd go into a studio, we'd record an album, and then 2 months later, we'd arrive on set, and they would play the playback, and we would mime alongside it. The problem with that is that you have to make all your acting choices 3 months before you've even met the actor you're working with. By recording it live, Tom is allowing us the spontaneity of normal film acting.
Some accuse the singing live as being flashy and cloying.
And I sang the vocals live. No, they did not pre-record them.
But it serves a definitive purpose. This element of time is crucial not only to film acting, but also a key component of stage acting, where performers have the chance to interpret the number anew with each utterance. Time is also treasured in the aesthetic choice beyond just the practicalities of filmmaking. The long take, encompassing all of I Dreamed a Dream, helps to restore a shared temporal axis that amplifies the actor's sense of presence and immediacy. While film can only be a facsimile of what the theater offers in this regard, Les Miserables at least offers viewers access to Hathaway's process and discovery by not splicing together different takes. Hooper's decision to rely on the close-up to carry the number places it firmly in the realm of the cinematic. For those who see Les Miserables in a theater, the contribution of a particular actress to the character of Fantine would be virtually unrecognizable, as they would only be able to evaluate her interpretation from the way she sings the lyrics of I Dreamed a Dream. The actor is but a speck on the stage, dwarfed by the scenery. But Hooper chooses not to place Hathaway's Fantine in a virtual proscenium arch, instead constricting her to a tight frame of shallow focus to limit the visual field and draw all attention to her performance. Hathaway can sing the number as the character would naturally be expressing these emotions, and as an actress, she can sing without the limitations of adhering to a different medium's conventions of expression.
On screen, you can't sing it, full out and project the way you would and be slightly over the top with it the way you can be on stage. You're going to actually have to really get inside the truth of the song, and you're going to have to find a way to act it. Just thought, what an amazing opportunity.
The power of I Dreamed a Dream is thus derived not only from the fact that Hathaway is acting with an attention to nuance and detail, but also from the audience's ability to perceive it in the close-up shot.
I can't sing this pretty because it'll take you out of it, and I'm asking the audience to believe a lot of things right now, and there seemed to me to be something almost selfish about trying to go for the pretty version of it. So I just sort of decided to apply the truth to the melody and then see what would happen.
They can see her palpable sense of longing being expressed when she sings the word love in the second stanza.
I dreamed that love would never die.
Observe the tears slowly welling up in her eyes and eventually cascade down her cheeks, and even discern the precise moment when her mentality switches from wistful longing for past idealism to bitter cynicism for the future. The close-up allows for the viewer to tap into the personal and human dimension of the song being conveyed by Hathaway. When captured in just the single take, the audience is effectively trapped in the moment with Fantine, which mirrors her journey as she is trapped in the frame, in the song, and in her life. She is unable to blink or escape until the painful and hopeless end, and the choice for the audience is either to follow her descent or look away entirely. Future usage of the close-up in the genre is limited, admittedly. Les Miserables is unique in its somber tone, as well as its lack of choreographed dance and scenes of dialogue. The close-up was the aesthetic tool of choice for Tom Hooper because it fit the particular musical he was directing. Other directors, however, might be able to achieve a similar effect of bridging the gap between film and theater with a different artistic device. Yet already, Rob Marshall's Into the Woods has featured a number, Stay With Me, where singer and actress Meryl Streep is shot in close-up for an extended portion of the number. There is cause for hope that what was once considered a binary set of genre identities could become more fluid. So we once again should thank Eddie Redmayne, a revolutionary for France on screen, and a revolutionary for the cinema in reality.